It's showtime here. We're going to get rocking. And I want to welcome you all to Building a B2B Podcast Operations Engine. All right. So, question I want to open with today is, what kind of car do you drive? Tell me over there in the chat real quick, and we'll give people a few seconds to plug it in. But like, what is your normal ride? Or maybe you've got something special in the garage. Let's see what folks are driving here lately, because it's going to really relate to what we've got here. Audi 3-row SUV. We're going to make a joke about that in a moment. Acura. Hey, good for you, Gene, for keeping that thing running for a long time. VW Passat. Okay, I love this. We've got a good variety of, Shelby Mustang. Speaking my language a little bit there. We've got a good variety of vehicles here, which really actually niches right into what I want to talk about today. Because if you're me, I'm driving one of four things. It's either a speedy little Camry, a Toyota Highlander, my big F-150, or my wife's kick-ass 1970 Ford Thunderbird. Now, as you've seen in the chat there, some of us have a nice little fuel-efficient grocery getter, some of us have a zippy sports car, and some of us go out and buy the real-world equivalent of the Simpsons Canyonero, 12 yards long, 2 lanes wide, 65 tons of American pride. Now, giant fictional SUVs aside, every single one of these vehicles has a motor that is built and tuned to what it needs to do. So today's conversation is based around those three levels of podcasting and what the engine underneath each one looks like. Now, engines come in all shapes and sizes. They can be inexpensive little things that have to fight up every hill, like my buddy's Honda Fit, or they can be these mighty, reliable machines that run all day and don't break a sweat, much like a diesel locomotive. Today, we're going to pop the hood on podcast production, and I'm going to show you every part, what it does, and how you can pick the right pieces to create your own content engine that fits what you need it to do. Each of you in this room is a very special and specific person when it comes to starting a podcast. In our world, we call them the champion. And that's the person who has an idea for a show, who's going to fight for the budget, and who has to walk into a room and justify why this thing is worth the money and time, or maybe look at that balance sheet themselves. Today, we're going to give that person a new title, though. We're giving you all that new title, because you're not just a champion. In this situation, you're the driver. And this podcast thing is your vehicle. You're the one who picks the engine, and you're the one who pays for fuel. When it runs great, you look great. And when it sputters and dies on the side of the road, 6 episodes in, that's on you too. We want to prevent that. So this entire thing is for you drivers. Let's get you what you need, because here's what you're up against. Every one of you has heard one of these 3 lines, probably all 3 of them actually, from somebody who maybe signs off on your budget, or maybe you've read them yourself. Just have an intern make the podcast. It's easy to do it with AI, and let's keep it cheap. Now, over the next 40 minutes, we're going to dismantle all 3 of those myths, not with my opinions, but with an actual parts list. Once you see what's really under the hood of a podcast, you can't really unsee it, and you'll be able to defend building the right type of podcast engine for your business. So let's talk about those engines. When you decide to build a podcast, you're choosing one of 3, and we all need to be really honest about which one we're driving. The i4, or as I've called it all my life, the 4-banger. That's it. You solo. You wing it. That's you. It's 4 cylinders, and every cylinder is you. You're the writer. You're the videographer. You're the editor. You're the project manager. And as a result, you're the person who is tasked with hitting publish every single week. Now, you can definitely make content this way. But like a small engine, if you ask too much of it, it doesn't perform. There's no power in reserve. And the second life gets busy, this little 4-banger podcast engine stalls. It's a great way to start, but as your vehicle demands to go faster, this is where it starts to struggle. Now, most solo podcasts are 4-bangers that run on 3 cylinders instead, because something's honestly got to give when you do this all alone. The next is the V6, and you've added 2 cylinders now, a freelancer here, a contractor there, somebody to edit while you focus on the interviews. Extra cylinders mean extra power. And honestly, for a lot of folks starting out, this is the smart play. This is also where what I call the case of beer editor lives. You know the person I'm talking about. They're that talented college kid who will cut your episode for 30 pack of Coors Light and $50. That's a bolt-on cylinder for your engine. It works. Just know that that's what it is. It's a bolt-on. It may not be the level of reliability that you want from that relationship. And then finally, we have the V8. That is a full team firing in sequence. It's built to run every single day without redlining. And that's what we run at my company, Westport. 8 cylinders in 4 phases that we're going to show you, each one controlled by a specialist and firing at exactly the right moment. That's an engine that ships a show every week and never breaks a sweat. Now, here's what I'm not going to do today. I am not going to tell you that every single one of you needs a V8. You don't. Plenty of great shows run on a well-tuned V6, and there are even folks who do things great with a little speedy i4. We're going to look at this part by part because knowing exactly what you are choosing to add and leave out is incredibly important. And that, drivers, is the whole game. Before we get to the engine piece, though, there's 2 things that aren't exactly parts of an engine that we need to have a look at first because they control the inputs and outputs of the engine itself. Before we get to that, though, a bit of a straw poll right now. What kind of engine do you think you are right now before we go learning all about them? Are you an i4 because it's solo, it's all you? Are you a V6 because you've got a buddy or a freelancer that's helping you out with this? Or are you at or building towards that V8? Or maybe, yeah, put the thing in gear. Maybe you're sitting in your garage with just a box of wrenches. Let that run a little bit more. Oh, okay. Looks like everybody has responded, which is great. Okay. Couple of solo or a bunch of solos and a couple of folks who are still at the starting line. And that is okay because I think for the 8 of you now who are here, that is probably the single most valuable thing. Like having you folks in this is the perfect point. So I'm going to end this poll here. We'll get this out, share those results just so everybody can see. And then we'll pull those down real quick here. So moving along, and we will move towards garbage in and garbage out. Let's start with stuff that goes in because no matter how good your engine is, if it's full of gunky oil and clogged valves, it's not going to work too well. So, like fluids, your oil and coolant are your raw product. They're your camera, your microphone. You might notice here, I have a full HD camera. I have a studio quality microphone. And for a podcast, your guest's version of these count as well. The actual picture and sound you capture is one of the most important things you can do for your show. I want to tell you a quick story about running with bad fluids because I did it for years. When I started my show, my first show, I should say, was Slapdash. I was solo. The first couple episodes were me just talking into whatever equipment I had because I had a $0 budget. They took me an hour or 2 to make a piece, and it was partly because I was still learning audio engineering on the fly. I had a cheapo webcam. I had a $20 mic that I scavenged from some old like Rosetta Stone language learning kit from the 2000s. It was wild. But I ran those cheap and dirty fluids, if you will, for 20 to 30 episodes, and I paid for it every single step of the way. Everything downstream was harder because the raw material I was putting out was junk. Dirty oil is bad oil, no matter how many additives you put in it. Now, that's changed a bit today because of AI, but the point still generally holds. You can become a far more serious podcaster the moment you decide to capture your show with more than a built-in laptop cam and the onboard mic. That's the floor, and it's a low one. A decent webcam and a decent mic, whether you're going out on YouTube or LinkedIn, means you'll look great and you'll sound great, and your engine is ready to be run harder than you could without those. I'm not going to hand you any specific gear today in this presentation, and that's on purpose. There are a lot of great things out there, but at this very juncture, this very moment, because there are a number of you in that audience there and just one of me, it's a waste of our time to reflect on each and every configuration. But what I made for you was a gear list that is going over in the chat right now that you can take a look at. It's a downloadable PDF. And this is something that we've curated over the past 5 years or so of all the stuff that we know, like, and trust. And everything that we use at Westport Studios is flagged with a "we run this." So you can find out exactly what we're using, but also other things that might fit your setup better. So grab that download. That is part of being here. That is the extra education, which is great. So it is, as Kate is mentioning over there, it is a wealth of information. I didn't think it was going to get to be a 3 to 4 page thing. I thought it would be just a one sheeter, but it kind of grew. So I'm very happy to share that with you folks. And of course, to help make sure that the principle that we're talking about here never changes, that a clean, well-maintained engine puts out better power. And when you get serious about your picture and your sound, that's the important part. So learn your equipment. It is the single highest leverage fix on this entire list in this presentation, and it's often one of the least expensive long-term ones to make. Okay, so you've got the inside of the engine running well. You've got clean fluids, engine runs smoothly. Now, how are you putting power from your engine onto the road? And this is often where I watch things kind of sputter and die. A lot of people record on Zoom. And there's this horrible myth out there that Zoom is just fine for podcasts. And look, you can record a podcast on Zoom. We are on Zoom right now. We are doing a webinar on Zoom. The same way you can record a podcast on Zoom, the same way you can walk onto a construction site without a hard hat. You are just waiting for something to fall out of the sky and ruin your day. And as Bernie said there, can does not mean should. That is exactly correct. So here's why we don't think that Zoom is the right tool for this job. Zoom does not do what's called asynchronous video recording. Long story short, you want a local, clean, flawless file on each participant's own computer when you're recording a podcast that will also upload to the cloud. So if there are internet hiccups mid-interview, you're not dead in the water. You've got local copies. The platform merges them when the recording is done. The episode is saved from any hiccups that may have happened. These are basically run flat tires because you will get a blowout at some point in time. And I don't want to be over dramatic about this, but over my career of producing almost 5,000 episodes of podcasts, I would say 1 in 4 to 1 in 5 has some sort of issue to resolve. Maybe it's bad guest audio. Maybe it's a dropped connection. Oh, I can't see you. Maybe it's, somebody changed the video option in there unintentionally, and it causes them to disconnect. If you're on Zoom, that kind of a blowout means you're stranded. You lost that part of the episode, or worse, you can't get them back, and you're rescheduling. If you're on a real recording platform, you just keep on driving on that run flat. The platform we recommend is Riverside FM, basically because it's best in class. They've been doing it the longest, and right now it's basically plug and play. The ability to rescue an episode isn't just a nice to have with them. It's built in as part of the system. Whatever platform you pick, and there are 3 big ones, Riverside, Squadcast, and Zencaster. And Squadcast did get absorbed by Descript, and we'll talk about that in just a moment. Whatever platform you pick, learn the living daylights out of it. And for me, that took years, but now thankfully you know me, so you have shortcuts in this case. Okay, this brings us to the parts list that you should build the whole engine out of. This is your tool stack, as you're seeing it on the screen here. And Riverside was our first part. Tool selection itself is a system. There are best-in-class parts, and there's cheap aftermarket junk too. Choosing well up front saves you a world of hurt and oftentimes a lot of money because it's a buy once, cry once situation. If you're looking at the PowerPoint presentation right now, this is our stack. For recording, we just covered Riverside. For editing, we use Descript, even though they can do recording as well. We record in Riverside, then move the video into Descript because the features in Descript are just way, way ahead of what Riverside has right now, because Riverside has been playing catch up as a recording platform first that became an editor rather than an editor that became a recording platform when Descript absorbed Squadcast. So it's very much a deliberate two-platform move for us. And as much as part of me would love to just lock everything into one platform, for us, it's not the right move at this point in time. It's a case of right parts for the right job, even though it does seem less efficient. Now, is there a level up from this? You might be asking. Yes, there are premium parts. Adobe, DaVinci, both are really powerful tools. And in my mind, I think sometimes that's a little bit upwards from what most B2B podcasts actually need. That's your race tuned engine for a car that drives you to the office, or a lifted pickup truck with a heavy duty towing package that only gets mulch from Home Depot once a year. Don't buy horsepower that you're never going to put on the road. For the other side of the equation, we have hosting and distribution. If you're on a shoestring budget and just trying to prove something, Spreaker is a great tool to do it. They have a free tier, and there are a number of other platforms out there that do offer that free tier. It's often limited features, but a lot of times, if you're just trying to prove that concept, that doesn't matter. But if you want best in class, we point people to our friends at Ausha. They're great folks. They have a clean interface and a lot of one-click stuff that'll get your show where it needs to go. My point here, though, is don't necessarily use exactly these. My point is to have you choose your parts on purpose. A V8 engine built out of the cheapest parts in the bin is just an expensive and mechanically complicated way to break down. Okay. Now, I am guessing that this may be the most controversial place that I talk about in this presentation, the most controversial part, because I promised we talked about AI. Just have AI do it, right? And here's where I'm going to plant my flag, because everybody talks about it and most people are getting it wrong. If you've seen any of those Fast and Furious movies, you've probably seen a blue bottle under a hood at some point in time on a car, right? That's called nitrous oxide. AI is your nitrous. NOS, it makes the car go ultra zoom zoom fast. It's a boost that you hit at the right moment for a burst of power. It's not the primary fuel for the engine, and it's not the engine itself. I want to repeat that again. AI is a boost. It is not your primary fuel, and it is not your engine. The second you try to run your whole vehicle on way too much nitrous, you blow the motor. Like, it literally explodes. I want to get a little bit more specific on this with the take of don't use AI, because that kind of take right now is basically useless in this day and age. I want to show you my actual green light, red light layout for how we are recommending that folks do this. Taking a look here, this is how I believe you should use podcast AI in your podcast production, and the ones are flare flagged for how we use them at Westport Studios. Let's take a look at green lights. Transcription tools. I feel so bad about recommending this because AI killed the transcription industry like overnight. Like, tons of people lost their jobs because of that, but it's very good at it. This is something you should absolutely use your AI powers for. If you've never transcribed a video yourself, I would really invite you to take just a 2-minute clip sometime, look up what the standards are, and then see how long it takes you to make that transcript versus loading it into an AI like Descript, which will get a 45-minute piece about 90% plus correct in 1 to 2 minutes on a bad day. It is unbelievable how much time that saves. A 45-minute episode would probably take 3 to 4 hours to transcribe without AI, which is wild. The other thing that we're big time greenlight on is editing tools like Descript that use AI under the hood to speed up making cuts and things like that. 100% use things like this. A tool like Descript makes a skilled human faster by editing text instead of waveform. But keep in mind, it's not perfect, just like all AI. You may still need to edit a waveform down below because Descript isn't perfect. These two under the green light are the biggest time savers I see, and pretty much I almost always trust these with minimal oversight. I do still check their work, though. This is how you use nitrous right with your podcast engine. It's going to add horsepower when mixed properly with your fuel, and that's where we start to go, well, what if we add a little bit more? We're going to get into the yellow lights, the danger zone. This first one is one that I have a love-hate relationship with: audio recovery and improvement tools. These oftentimes can really save a bad file, but you've got to be listening to every second of it because they'll happily fix something into sounding worse or hallucinating something that's not even there. One of the major things I see is that the raw audio, if it even begins to have something in it that turns an S sound into a TH sort of sound, there are times where either a guest has a style of talking or a speech impediment where AI tools will take that and crank it to the extreme. They will literally make this person sound like Daffy Duck from a minor speech trait, and they will extrapolate it into absurdity by making every S into a ludicrously pronounced lisp. So that's why we have a yellow light on that, and that's why we tend to check every second of audio that we get back from AI tools like Adobe Enhance and things like that. There are other tools out there as well, like video, voice, and image generation, that are hit and miss as well. And with a bit of luck and know-how, you can start to wrangle those. We don't recommend video generation right now because it is so intensive on local hardware. If you can find something that does video generation light duty, that is a very high skill ceiling, I should say, on that. Image, voice, and video generation we find are things that use sparingly in podcast production. And video, I would almost say it's just above like the red light onto the yellow there. So talking a little bit more each individually here. Image generation, we used to do YouTube thumbnails with AI via Claude and Gemini, but we stopped because a human designer was a better and more precise tool. And I really wish I would have saved a test project that I had last week for an AI thumbnail. Needless to say, we'll say the guest image was not flattering at all. After AI had tried to crop her and then color correct her, she looked like she had dumped a bucket of black paint on her head and was cut out very, very poorly. It was just a very, very unusual thing that AI hallucinated there. So voices are one thing that we are experimenting with as well, and they run into ownership issues. Most, if not all, AI platforms require you to record a consent statement before using or making an AI voice. That's usually not the hurdle in itself, but the voice that is generated from that statement, unless you read it very dynamically, is actually pretty lackluster. I tested this on Monday with myself in Descript, and it sounds like me on a bad day. It's passable for a word or two, but as you've listened to me talk, it does not sound, it sounds like I'm just having the worst day possible if you do it for more than a few words. And like I said with video, I'm so close to putting video in red, but it barely scrapes into yellow because it is getting easier to generate local or even online video that isn't completely off the wall. Either way, I would say video generation is experts only. The only guy I know who has the chops to make this happen is my buddy of 20 years who tinkers with this for fun. He also happens to be our project manager at Westport Studios. But so long story short, that's where we are with the yellow lights. Lastly, red lights. These are 100%, in my opinion, no way when it comes to podcasting. AI builds the podcast. Hey, that's great. That's the let the intern do it. Plus, hey, it's make it cheap, right? LLMs that just auto pack your content out for you, the generate me a summary, generate me a whole episode button. Notebook LM from Google is a perfect example of what not to lean on for this. And here's why, because this is what really matters with podcasting. AI is bad at pacing. It's bad at suspense. It's bad at timing. And when you're working with anything emotional, anything that's meant to make a human being feel something, pacing and timing and suspense are the entire game. It will technically be content, but it won't land if a human being doesn't take the time to find the pauses, the beats, the flows that pull us all way deeper into the conversation. Now, I do want to put a caveat out there. If you're just looking to learn something in the same way you do maybe an audiobook or a YouTube video, sure, you can use AI to make something like Notebook LM for this. But for the majority of implementations, for real conversations, avoiding 100% AI-driven processes is likely way better for your listenership. So I want to take an aside here for just a moment here, because case in point with that, about a year ago, I read about a company that used AI to create 10,000 AI podcasts, and they flooded Spotify and iTunes. They then boasted on LinkedIn about 3 million listens. Now let's divide that out and say they had an average of 20 episodes per show. If we do that math, 3 million divided by 10,000 is 300 downloads per show, or an average of about 15 downloads per episode. Most human shows, even in their worst performing stretches, do between 5 and 20 times that for listenership. So remember, AI is your nitrous. It is not your engine. It's one of those things that you want to add to your fuel versus making it your fuel. As we move forward here, keeping things running, we need an engine that has a fuel tank. And with an empty tank, your engine is just a 600-pound paperweight. Your fuel supply is your guest pipeline. One of the things I've been preaching since March is what we call our 2-a-day method. Ultra fast recap here for those of you who are unfamiliar with it. If you do a small number of guest outreaches every day, even just 2, you'll almost never be caught without a guest. The shows that die are the ones that run their tank dry and then panic. If you're doing enough guest outreach just on a daily basis, 2, even 1 can do it. It's going to mean that your guest pipeline is always topped off. But it's not just about keeping your fuel tank full. Sometimes it's actually about running the right type of fuel, the right octane, the right blend. And the right octane is your ICP, your ideal customer profile. Who is this show actually for? Who do you want in that guest chair across from you? Because they're the kind of person who becomes a conversation, a relationship, and eventually a deal. I can't build your ICP for you. That's your homework as a driver. That's your business. You know that better than anyone. But I can help you identify them. And once you know exactly who they are, sourcing guests gets easier. LinkedIn Sales Navigator, Listen Notes, and my personal favorite little cheat code on this, find a show in your niche and go read their guest list. Those people already said yes to coming on a podcast once. You can then self-sort the good, the bad, and the ugly from there, and boom, full tank of fuel, the right octane. Engine fueled. All right. Here's the thing nobody wants to hear. We have an engine, and all that horsepower is useless until something puts it to the road. That's your transmission feeding your power to your tires. This is project management, and this is where we really are starting to blow apart what we do as a tech stack here on the with us at Westport, so that we can share that with you. Here we go. We run on Asana. You could run ClickUp. You could run Monday. You could run something that's homegrown. I've seen it all work. Asana has proven malleable enough for us to run multiple shows for multiple clients all at once without dropping a single thing. So that's where we've stayed. But the key part of project management is the timing aspect. And just like a transmission keeps gears spinning and locking in to move power from the engine, the project tool takes your efforts and puts purpose behind them. And here's what I mean by that. Every single small task in producing a podcast, and there are dozens of them, our shows average about 40 different tasks to make. They should all be written down. They should all be documented. That's a difficult thing sometimes to do, especially if you are new at this. But it's putting things into gear. You're shifting up 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. It's turning the horsepower of your efforts into forward motion instead of just scattered noise. And I'm not saying this is just for the big teams. If you've got a 4-banger type podcast and you're flying solo, this matters more, actually, not less, because there's nobody reminding you what's next. You have to build a system that nags you. You have to become the transmission in your I-4. Document how you do it the same way every single time so it becomes a pattern instead of a scramble. Now, if the transmission puts power to the wheels and gets you going, You still need to know what your engine is doing while you drive. You need a dashboard. Ours is something we call a rolling production queue. It's our signature instrument, and it was built by our project manager over years of running this. And it's one of the best uses of Asana I've ever seen. It works a lot like a gauge cluster on a car. And at a glance, it tells us when a project starts, when it's due to be finished. And this is the big one. It tells us the workload on each episode that every person on our team is putting in each week. Who's got room? Who's maybe redlining? What's coming up? What's due so we can prioritize. That one tool changed everything for us when we implemented it about 2 years ago, because we're mapping out how much time everything actually takes each week for every person. And that's what keeps us from overheating and blowing our engine. It's also a huge, huge benefit for prioritizing episodes and tasks like our own blog or these webinars, things like that. But here's the good news for you solo drivers. You don't need to grab an Asana instance or spin that up or try to copy what my team and I have done with our production queue. You can build a version of this with a legal pad or a spreadsheet in G Suite or Excel. The point isn't to have it as software. The point is actually just having a dashboard at all. If you're driving blind with what's going on in your engine, you wind up broken down on the side of the road and not knowing why. Down the line, I think what we'll do is we'll peel back the curtain on that actual tool, because it is pretty neat. I just need to make sure that my team has me understanding every angle of it, because I'm the one who didn't build it. They did. So for a future date, we'll maybe put that on the agenda here so we can show that to people down the line. Okay. We've talked parts. Now I want to show you the engine actually running. This is how we do things here, and I want you to take, as my old sales mentor said, take the best and leave the rest for your own podcast engine. But before you actually build an engine, before the engine can run, you actually have to build an engine. And a lot of times that's what people skip, and that's why we talked about project management just a moment ago. Before we produce a single episode of a new show, there's a one-time engine build. We obviously call it onboarding. This is where we set a show's identity, the branding, the intro, the outro, the templates, that look and sound that is going to be consistent forever after, or at least until we've had a great number of episodes out there and need a bit of a refresh. You build the engine block once. You bore the cylinders once. You get this right, and every episode after it just runs. If you skip it, you will be wasting time rebuilding that engine every single week on the side of the road and wasting so much time doing so. Time that could be better spent driving your show with a guest in the passenger seat or mixing that episode back at the garage/sound studio. So build your engine first and then drive. Now, the cycle, and you might remember this from high school auto shop, most vehicles that we're familiar with, most cars, I'll say, run on a 4-stroke cycle. Intake, compression, combustion, and exhaust. And it turns out that our actual 4 production phases, this was not intentional, map onto this almost perfectly. There's a little bit of bleed, but I do want to walk you through one full rotation. So stroke 1, if we're looking at this right now, that's pre-production, intake. We pull everything in. The clerical stuff that nobody romanticizes but everybody needs. Create the project, put it in the right folders. And the real big one, our file naming system. If you look at that yellow bar across the bottom, you'll see how ours works. It's like a street address. Customer, show, content type. Is it audio or video? Episode number, guest, the deliverable type, the resolution of that deliverable type, and what version that is. Just like 123 Main Street, Port Washington, Wisconsin, USA, gets you exactly one building, our naming structure gets you exactly one file every single time. We store it all to the cloud with backups. You never keep this stuff only on your local machine. That is a nightmare for podcasters. Intake is where we also gather every part and piece of audio, video, guest photos, bios, and we flag any roadblocks up front. We pre-listen to the audio and video, looking for anything weird about the file, any problem that an editor is going to hit. Is their mouth movement desynced from their audio? Is there a weird hum in the background that we need to compensate for? On my team, this mostly belongs to our project manager, Adam, with 1 or 2 customer-facing tasks on my plate. That's our first phase of the cycle. Next, we move into the second one, compression. And we call this the episode blueprint. We take all of that raw material and we squeeze it. This is our writer Erica's stroke. She owns blueprints. We break down the whole episode into a topic grid so that you can see the entire thing at a glance and spot anything with timestamps that needs to be removed or to move. And this is kind of where the pressure builds before ignition. And it's also where we start planning real assets that come out of what the inputs were. The quotes, the title, the edits that we want in the main body of the podcast, and show notes too. And yes, this is where AI can sometimes earn its keep as your nitrous. Check your terms for AEO and SEO, answer engine optimization for AI, and search engine optimization for traditional web search. We make sure we're using the words that people are actually going to search up for their podcasts. But, and I can't say this loud enough, we don't just go in there and hit the generate summary button and ship that. Please don't do that for your own show. That is 100% AI slop. A human writes the show notes. AI helps. AI compiles things, but a human makes them read the right way and ensure that there are real, accurate links that send the reader somewhere valuable. Because even though the number of people who read show notes is only a fraction of your total audience, those are the people who are worth likely capturing as a lead. Compression is where a loose interview becomes a tight, intentional episode. And it's because of the human interaction and intervention that you will put in with that. Third phase, combustion, the power stroke, the content production. This is the boom. This is Annie's domain, our videographer, and she is where we actually build the things that people see and hear. The video, in the full video interview, the audio, the opening transition, the lower third cards, the still graphics. One rule that we follow about video, especially if you're going to be putting your podcast on YouTube, you've got 6 seconds on YouTube. If you don't have your listener hooked in those 6 seconds of your video, first 6 seconds, they're likely gone. They're clicked and they're moved on to something else. Okay. Now, I'm going to move off of this slide here for a moment because there's a combustion story I want you to remember, because for years, our firing order was backwards. We made the audio version of our podcast first and then retooled it into video. It took us about 6 hours to do this. And, 2 hours on audio, 4 hours on video. Then in 2023, we flipped the thing on its head. We reversed the firing order. We'd make video first. We'd peel the audio off of it and adjust that to be fielded as just an audio piece. Same parts and pieces, same ignition, just different timing. And it took us from about 6 hours down to about 3.5. We didn't add anything to it. We just kind of retooled and retuned things. And that combustion, that single power stroke, it doesn't just drive the one wheel on the car. It drives multiple wheels. Repurposing of content is one of the most valuable things that a real podcast engine does. One combustion event drives dozens of outputs sometimes. The full episode, short form clips, still quote cards, thumbnails, the show notes, the blog. You don't record 12 times and make one of these things each time. You combust everything once and start routing that power everywhere. A 4-banger that makes one episode a day or a week is great, but you might not have the ability to add all of those extra things. If you have the capability to make a bigger engine, you can make that one episode, and those additional metaphorical cylinders can drive a whole week's worth of content out of it. One other thing about AI that I chose not to mention before, there are tools out there that can help you slice and dice your long-form content. I know Riverside has one. I know there's one out there called, CapCut, I believe, is another. But there are a number of them, and you can simply Google those to see if that is something that you want to do. But I encourage you to use them with caution because oftentimes they lack context. We still somewhat select clips by hand here at Westport, and that's not to say that we don't ask, AI assistants for high points or where we should start looking. But if it suggests a cut, we go and we look with a lot of scrutiny for context because AI sometimes omits little pieces of that would make a passable video into something really great. Sometimes it's just 1 or 2 words, but sometimes it's a whole extra 15 seconds of explanation at the end or 5 seconds as a stronger hook at the beginning. The point is, don't just trust what AI gives you when it comes to creating podcast content. Look to see if your short form content has all the context it needs, and if it needs more, give it. Your viewer will thank you. All right. Last but not least, exhaust post-production. This is scheduling, releasing, long-term storage, and for the most part, people completely forget about this. Going back to your guests and getting them to promote your episode. I cannot overstate how important that is. An episode a guest promotes outperforms one that they don't by roughly threefold. And sometimes that's hundreds of downloads, sometimes it's thousands. So we have a system for it. We talked about it last month. It's a follow-up sequence. 4 or 5 touches, the thank you note, the day of nudge, 2 weeks later, hey, thanks again for coming on my show, and what we call the pitch pivot, which we broke down last month. If you want, we'll have the replay of this, and you can catch that webinar as well. All of this stuff needs to live on a content calendar, because when you actually adhere to a calendar, you do dramatically more. I know for me, if something is on my calendar, it's important, so it gets done. Every one of our clients runs a content calendar. So that's one full rotation of our process. Intake, compression, combustion, exhaust. And a well-built engine doesn't just do that once. It does it over and over, thousands of times a minute, smooth and strong. Now, thankfully, we don't need to produce podcasts that fast, but you get where I'm coming from. So one more thing happens before that podcast ever leaves the shop, and it's the part I am the most protective of, and I'm happy to share this with you today. It's called the PDI, pre-delivery inspection. So no car leaves a good car dealership without one of these, and no episode leaves us without one either. It's 2 sets of eyes on purpose. Adam goes through first. He's our PM, and he's also our quality audit guy. And he's also, and I mean this as the highest compliment to him, he's our cringe checker and our self-absorbedness checker. His job is to catch the stuff that's going to land flat. The moment it's going to make a listener go, ooh, he intends to pull it before anybody sees it. It then comes to me, and I watch every single episode we make start to finish, oftentimes at regular speed, sometimes at high speed, and I'm watching for 2 things. Are the scene transitions tight? And does the episode wander? Adam edits for cringe and flatness. I edit for flow and for story. Because at the end of the day, this is storytelling. Your podcast, even if it is just an interview podcast, is storytelling. And a wandering story loses people no matter how good it sounds. And only after both he and I sign off does this ship. That's our pre-delivery inspection. And that's how you make sure a podcast leaves the shop as something you'd put your name on. So who's turning the crank on all of this? I've been naming names. I want to show you the actual faces behind this, because our team structure is half of the promise, and it's the whole difference between a V8 and a very tired 4-banger. Our V8 has 4 compression strokes, and each one is not compression strokes, 4 engine cycle strokes. Each one is a specialist who gets to sit in their seat and shine. Erica writes, she owns the blueprints. Annie shoots and cuts, she owns the content production. Adam is project management and quality audit. He takes and QAs everybody else's work. I'm the driver, but I'm also the 4th cylinder, and I own the client relationships. But here's why we split it this way instead of one person doing everything. When each person lives in one seat, they get great at it. And it's far better than any generalist juggling all 4. And it keeps a human hand on every part of the project. And this scales too. I can add shows without the whole thing falling over, because each of these cycles is independent. Now, for those of you who are building a smaller engine, you can run a 1-show team all by yourself. There are plenty of people out there who do it and do it very well. But if you have any opportunity to bring in even one more person, even as just a second set of eyes to make sure you have a QA pass before you ship it, take it. The most valuable thing another human being gives you isn't their labor in this case. It's being the eyes and ears on the stuff that you're way too close to see. Every 4-banger type podcast I've seen gets better and has gotten better every time they've added a second set of hands. All right. Your engine is built. You've got the parts, you've got the pieces. It's going to be running. The episode is inspected. It's out the door. The last question you should have here is, where are you driving this thing? You promote a B2B podcast where business actually happens, and that means LinkedIn, business channels. I am a completely broken record on this. LinkedIn is the single most important visibility platform for B2B, period. You can put your shows on non-business channels, but it is going to drown early on. Platforms like YouTube just matter for discovery these days. And I do want to be realistic about that. If you have a B2B show, you should have a YouTube channel for it. But I want to be realistic too. YouTube is full of stuff that's a whole lot more entertaining than your deep industry conversation. And that's not a knock on you. And that's not beating on the big creators of YouTube entertainment either. You're not going to beat them, and that's okay. Most professionals listen to B2B podcasts to learn. So drive your show to where the business learners are and not where you're going to be competing with cat videos. Here's where we're landing almost at the end here, folks. This is the whole point. All of this, the fuel, the tires, the transmission, the 4-stroke cycle, the crew to run it, even if it's just you. None of that's the point. The engine's never the point. The point is where the engine takes you. So those 3 myths we talked about earlier, have an intern do it. It's easy. It's cheap. You've now seen under the hood. You know it can take 4 specialists, even after we've optimized the living daylights out of it, several hours of skilled human work on every episode. And that's with a fully built engine. It's not easy. It's not cheap. But an intern with a laptop is a 4-banger running bad fuel with no dashboard, and that's risky to say the least. But here's the flip side, and it's good news for you. The more you put in up front, the more you plan, the more you build your systems, the more time you save on the back end, even if you're flying solo. So what does that well-built engine actually deliver us to? It's not vanity downloads. It's not a number that makes a slide look nice. It's 2 things: deals and people excited enough about your show that they reply, they DM you, they email you wanting to know more. I've got clients whose listeners write in just to ask about the stuff they've talked about on their show. And it's not the stuff that you think the entire episode was about. That's the destination. And that's what you, the driver, actually get judged on. And that's what it's worth building a real engine for. So what's under your hood? Whatever you decide, make sure you decide it on purpose. Spinning up a show, no matter what level, can really be an undertaking. And for those of you who are at that 4-banger level, you have my respect. I salute the living daylights out of you because it is hard to run this alone. The goal that you have right now is to balance your resources to make it work the best for what your situation is. Earlier today, we talked about getting the right fluids to make the engine run smoothly, the oil and the coolant, right? Audio and video, oil and coolant. We've got that download over in the chat right there. If you haven't grabbed that, make sure you grab it and use it to plan your setup. It's a great first step, especially for those of you who haven't started building your podcasting engine yet. Kate has our that PDF over in the chat for you right now. If you miss it, don't worry. It's going to get sent to you in our follow-up as well. So take a moment, grab that PDF if you have not yet already. Lastly, no matter where your podcast journey takes you, I want to offer you 2 quick things. Number 1, and if you were here very early, you've already gotten this one. If you're not connected to me already on LinkedIn, let's do that. I'm just a DM away because if you've got questions about this, I love answering stuff like this. I love helping folks in their very small, kind of the infancy of podcasts. And I think that's one of my favorite things to do. And the other part of that is if you've gone through this and you've heard me talk for the last 51 minutes and said, man, I want to do this podcast thing, but I think I need an actual mechanic and crew. Let's talk. My meeting link's over there in the chat as well, and my team and I would be thrilled to help you run your show full throttle. All right, folks, that's it for today. This was a fun one, very themed. I want you to all go out there and build something that runs and maybe, just maybe, get a noise complaint from doing a burnout down a residential street. Want to thank you all today for coming, which is absolutely fantastic. We've had a great crowd here. We will stick around here till the top of the hour for some Q&A. I tried to find a place for us to put this in the middle, but it just didn't work out with this. So I'm going to stop that presentation here and just want to thank everybody for coming along on our ride here, which is outstanding. And if you have questions, if you have anything that was burning during your time listening here and participating today, by all means, pop them all over in here. And Audrey, thank you so much. I'm so glad that it was valuable to you, which is great. And again, Ward, thank you for your participation here in the chat. I apologize, I didn't see that until now. You, to your point, as you mentioned, Ward, the mic is, yeah, the mic in transcription stuff. Like if you have a garbage mic, man, I've seen it kind of bottom out for transcription at like 80%, where it's like not even speaking English half the time. But yeah, good mics. I don't know if I go as high as 99%, but yes, you're correct on the proper nouns and the acronyms. You know, I have two B's on my name. Descript doesn't know that. It never will, which is fine. But that's one of those things too. Oh, since I'm actually mentioning that, very interesting thing, not 100% related to what we were talking about today, but in those transcripts, it is important to get people's names right. AI does what's called entity matching, and looks throughout the internet for exact copies of things that are mentioned in documents. ROB Conlon versus ROBB Conlon are two different people, completely different people, according to AI. So if you have a name with a either unique spelling or something that might get screwed up by AI, double check it in your transcripts, because that might have two of you being created out there. So we're in good shape there. But yeah, that definitely some really great stuff. As we're winding down here, we're in pretty good shape. I definitely want to open the floor for those questions. Make sure everybody's got a chance. Feel free to come on screen. Feel free to take a look at everything. And I do see, again, some great familiar faces out there. Thank you guys for tagging along. Your trust is tremendous, which is great. And hey, Karina, how you doing?
I'm doing good. How are you?
Good, good, good. What's on your mind?
Oh, you know, I just wanted to say this was really good. It really gave a structure to how to go about doing the podcasting. And of course, one of the things that I've been thinking a lot of lately, because I've talked, so you know that I'm trying to get to the
Yeah.
point where I am going to get that podcast going in balance with everything else that I have. But one of the things that I definitely see doing and want you to talk a little bit more about is how to extract some of the information from the podcast to make those clips, those reels that then drive more people into seeing the podcast.
Okay, so like, how is it more how we decide which things kind of make that cut, or is it more of just like the what what do we feel is makes a good short form video? Which one are we looking at?
Oh, well, I guess both of them. I mean, because I know,
Okay.
like, okay, using Riverside, I know that the AI will pull some things, right? And you're saying that now it may be better to go with another software like the Descript. Um, but it also takes a human to cut some of those things out because sometimes it doesn't pull out the best stuff.
Right.
Hmm.
Yeah, so what I've seen with like Riverside is like they're like, "Hey, here's 10 auto-selected clips." And on a scale of 1 to 10, they're going to give you five twos, two fours, a five, a six, and an eight. And finding that eight is like, okay, like let's take that and put it on the pile. But the other ones are just not there. So oftentimes I ask my AI assistants when I have like transcription going, hey, AI transcription assistant in Descript, what's the and I treat my AIs a little more like people than I probably should. Um, what's the moment where guest is at their absolute best? And I ask it that, and usually provides me 1 to 3 options there, and I can go listen to those independently and say, yeah, no, they didn't hit, or yes, they did. Being somebody who is conducting the interview, you're gonna remember sometimes when somebody hits, and that's the first tier that I use. Is like, I remember, I'm going to take the last interview I did. Fabulous gal named Erin. She came on my show, and she had this moment where I asked her a question about what her past self would think about where she is now, and she started tearing up. And I got her permission to make sure that we weren't like airing something that was a little too private for her, things like that. But I said, Erin, can I use this clip? Because this, like, I remembered that, like, I asked you a question, I made you cry, and that's where I said, okay, this is obviously something that we need to take a look at in
Hmm.
this case. And then from that, I would go through and I'd probably look at each of my questions to select like certain answers for her that I remembered that she rocked pretty hard on as well. So that's my first kind of like tier of selection there. Second tier of selection is kind of that AI, like, oh, did I forget one? Or is there another point where she makes a really good poignant selection there? Um, but then extracting that piece and throwing it into its own project, always baking in captions. I know that that's kind of a mixed bag sometimes, but I just, making sure that there's captions all around is a big thing too. But I think I'm gonna stop there and make sure that that answers at least most of your question. Then was there anything that I missed or could go deeper on?
No, it does. It answers most of my question.
Okay, wonderful, great
Yeah.
question. And again, clip selection is I feel like clip selection and thumbnails are the two things in the world that are just like really tough because they take an exceptional amount of taste and they take an exceptional amount of um, like emotional intelligence. What is going to resonate with people at the very deepest level from not just an attention grabbing moment, not just the, hey, come over here, but much more of the, kind of grab you by the whole shirt and pull you into the pool, if you will. That's where I think it's an art form. And Karina, I want to make sure that like everybody who does this starts close to zero, and that's okay, which is great.
Yeah.
So yeah, it is okay to be bad at something because it's the worst you'll ever be at it. That's it's great. But anyway,
Yeah,
oh, I see.
that is great.
Mhm. I see a question from Ward here. Okay, working on automating a weekly process to use Descript to create avatars in the likeness of a handful of our consenting members to do a news briefing based on a transcript. Okay. I do not know of anybody who's doing anything like that at all, actually. It is something that's unique. The one thing I would be a little bit concerned about, Ward, is that the I was having this discussion the other day with I think Kate. I think this was with you about how people are how fake versions of people work. Um, I had a client at one point in time who was really on the leading edge of AI, Ward, and he did a gosh, what is that platform called? But it does a video version of you, a fake avatar version of you, and you can make it speak German or whatever it might be. But he did this of himself, and he had himself do a like a 30-second ad read. And I looked at it and I watched it, and it was pretty dead on. And if I didn't know him at all, I'd have said, "Oh, that that washes in this case." But because I did know him, I knew that his personality didn't quite match up. It looked just like him, it sounded just like him, but the thing that I literally said was, "That's not Bart." Like it was almost like a horror movie thing. It was kind of funny, like that's a shapeshifter, if you will, because it didn't capture Bart's uh, reservedness, if you will. It made him much more animated and energetic, like I am, when in reality, the real Bart is a pretty level, easygoing guy. So, with creating avatars, I'm something of a I'm kind of like 70-30 against it. I can see where it's very useful from a top of funnel area to say like, hey, I'm Rob and I do podcasts and things like that. And if people don't know me at all, it doesn't matter because they have nothing to gauge my personality against. But if they do know me, even just a little bit, and Karina, you're a great example of this. You and I have had an extended conversation. If you do know me, an avatar Rob might come across as like a little bit off. So I don't think you should avoid doing it, Ward. I think it's a good experiment. I would do it once. I would do it once and see what happens. And I mean, if you feel, I'd love to know what happens if you do it, which is great. Um, but yeah, the one thing I do see that may be a challenge is, especially if things get a little bit varied in that, is that from the voice sample that you give, you may not be able to get the depth of uh, voice output that you want. I know that some of like with Descript, they had me read like a 45-second clip the other day, and they used to have me put in like a 10-minute big old long one, so there was a lot more to draw from. So I'm wondering if that maybe limits it, but something to consider there. Very, very good question. Um, which is great. Anything else out there that is on folks' mind? Yeah, there you go, man. Exactly. Your avatar feels clinical. Yes. Um, and the lack of depth there. But if it's a 35-second ad read of for the general populace, that might get you might be able to get away with that. So I'm I think avatars are interesting from a point of, hey, this is kind of cool and it lets me be in two places at once. But also, my lots of my business and lots of what I work with people on is relying on that really tight, super personal relationship that an avatar actually sort of sabotages, things like that. So, man, just stupendous question. Stupendous question. Thank you for that one, man. We'll take probably one more here and then we'll wrap things because I gotta get going here because it is a busy week. Like I said at the beginning, it seems like it's one of those times, and thankfully one of them is here, where everybody in my world has gone, oh my gosh, it's almost September. We better make stuff happen with Westport. So that's a good thing. But for anybody who needs a hand or is looking for that next level for their podcast, if this has been valuable to you, by all means, come on by. I'd be happy to get you taken care of and see how we can make some really great content together here, which is great. So, last call for questions. We're going to count it down from 7, 6, 5. All right. I'm going to call that a wrap here. Thank you all for being here. It was a great time. And we'll be sending a replay of this as well as the rest of the playlist tomorrow-ish. I'm going to get this on YouTube so you can enjoy it and everything like that. And just thank you all of those of you who have been here and for those of you who continue to come here. Thanks so much. Have a great day.
Thank you, Rob.
Mhm.